Have grants been a mystery to you? If so, then watch this presentation and all will change. Before you apply for any grant, watch this presentation where we're going to cover what a grant really is, where you start looking, and what you should know before you start writing. The first thing you should really understand is what a grant really is. This is the very start of the process and where everything could go wrong from the word go, because a grant isn't just about somebody putting some money out there and saying, hey guys, what can you do with this? It's actually, there's a primary reason, and there's 2 or 3 ways to look at it. One, it's a mechanism to turn policy, which is usually government policy, into results. Bearing in mind that the government has got the resources but doesn't have the people on the ground, isn't at the grassroots. So that's where the grassroots comes into it. The grant is money on offer to achieve what you want to achieve, but it's got to be in the context of what they want to achieve. Does that make sense? And likewise, when it comes to philanthropics, it's around ideology and the determination of the benefactors who have donated funding for causes. When you've decided you want a grant, the next thing you ask yourself is, where do I look? Well, here are some suggestions. First of all, you have the government entities I mentioned earlier. That could be at the local municipal level, i.e. councils. It could be at the state level, and it could be federal government. Each of those areas will have their own policy focuses, their own priorities that they want to achieve. And you'll be able to find that information on the internet. So what you're looking for is specific policies and frameworks and planning documents to give you an idea of exactly what it is that the goals that they're wanting to achieve. And you'll also, because they are available entities, that you'll be able to access their funding information about what grants are available free of charge. All you have to do is to sign up to a newsletter to be alerted of all the upcoming grants in those spaces. The other areas you can look at are foundations, which include banks and philanthropic trusts. Now, for instance, in both of these areas, we're talking mainly not-for-profits. Not so much businesses, but as not-for-profit businesses or not-for-profit associations and organisations. And for philanthropic trusts, more often than not, they're looking for organisations that have got deductible gift recipient status, which actually enables benefactors and donors to claim back on their tax. So in order to apply for funding, the organisations must have this category through the tax office. A little earlier I mentioned government and policy direction, and whenever there's a change of government, there's usually a change of direction. And currently in Australia there's been a change of federal government, and I know in the state that I'm in there's likely to be a change of state government, or maybe not. I don't know, I can't predict that. But in terms of what does it mean when there's a change in government, which means a change in policy. So I do not know, these are my predictions. I think there's going to be greater focus on mental health, especially as results of COVID lockdowns, COVID restrictions, bushfires, floods, storms. In Australia, we've certainly been hit by a number of major events that will have a mental health implication for the population. Going second one down here is emergency recovery and preparation for future events, and this is part of climate adaptation as well. I can see that climate change being taken more seriously, and the devastating fires of 2019-2020, the floods of this year. There's a lot about response, there's a lot in the area of recovery, but I think at some point we're going to be moving into how do we prepare and become more resilient in the incidence of future disasters. climate adaptation as above, but also in terms of recycling, etc., waste recycling. That I can see being a big one in the circular economy. There's also jobs. Anything, it doesn't matter who's in power. At the end of the day, the economy is turned by jobs, and the more jobs that we can keep, and new jobs especially, that's what the powers that be will always put as a priority. Equality and diversity, I can see that one becoming more prominent in the next couple of years, as well as social integration. So you're ready to apply for a grant, but before you put pen to paper, here are 3 quick tips. First of all, your pitch. Your pitch should be about how you're going to solve the problem for the funder. It's not just about what you want to do. Be able to tie what you want to do to the aims, objectives and/or outcomes that the funder is looking for. Number 2, never assume that the funder knows who you are, your market or your community. Even if they do, because you don't know who is going to be reading and assessing the application. It's also an even playing field. So it's very black and white. The assessment process is transparent, and put yourself into 3 or 4, 5 years into the future, and the program is being audited, and the auditor looks at how the decisions were made about who gets funded. So it's very important that you become to some degree descriptive about the problem and about the solution, and also about your capability. So do your research, get the demographic, the economic data, the stories, the supports, whatever you can do to actually show there's a very, very strong case that's not generic, it's actually detailed about the problem, the need, your activity and the solution. And the third pointer that I wish to give you today is that the whole question process is putting together a business case. And as part of that business case, you are you are meant to show the benefits of what you want to do to meet the needs of the problem. Just recently, we've been asked to look at applications that were put together in previous rounds by others, and asked, we weren't successful, we don't know what we've done wrong, please can you look. The funder is too busy to give us direct feedback. We value what you have to say. And it's been consistent in those examples that in fact what they've written is about what they want to do, the features of what they want to do, product or service, but they have not aligned it to the problem, to the demographic, and the desired outcomes of the funder. Just making that subtle difference in your thinking has a vast impact in what you write down. To help you on your grant writing journey, go to getthatgrant.com and you'll be able to download some resources to help you. These include a number of free guides that you can read and sort of get to know more about grant writing. We've got a Get That Grant project planning app, so before you even have a grant available, you may have the idea. So this helps you to get the idea out of your head, get it written down, so that you've at least done half of the work, so that when a grant comes along, you can just pick up, run with it, and hopefully get funded. And the third resource that you will be interested in is that we've got a publication called Teach Yourself Grant Writing, which goes into depth. This is the Australian edition that goes into depth on how the whole grant writing process works in the Australian grant writing ecosystem.